Can we survive climate change without changing ourselves? Can we survive climate change without changing ourselves? Can we survive climate change without changing ourselves? It doesn't matter how you ask the question. Unfortunately, the answer is no. We cannot survive climate change without changing ourselves. And what I want to do in this brief talk is identify three main areas where I think change is necessary and desirable. But before we come to that, let's just remind ourselves what's at stake. Extraordinary image, isn't it? And Yuri Gagarin, when he made his first orbit into outer space, said, "I see Earth. Isn't it so beautiful?" And I think he's right about that. It's not just a question of beauty in the eye of the beholder. It's not a subjective matter. It's an objective matter. It's something which we can assess as human beings or subspecies aeternitatis. We want to be able to say, yes, there is an extraordinary diversity of species that inhabit the Earth, that we share this beautiful planet with, that is awe-inspiring. Life, the whole web of life, that is something that has value in itself and is worth preserving. And one of the reasons I became an environmentalist is because I hate injustice. I rail against injustice. And make no mistake, those people who are least responsible for the negative consequences of climate change, and those people who are least able to afford the remedial action required to contend with climate change, are often those most at the sharp end of it, whether it be in low-lying coastal areas as a result of sea level rises, as we speak, whether it be Bangladesh, the Maldives, with more mayhem to follow. But it's not just about human beings, our contemporaries, important that is. It's also about future generations, people who aren't around yet, who aren't able to press their claim upon us and say, grab us by the collars and say, what are you doing with the planet's finite resources, spending it like there's no tomorrow? They don't have a voice. But it's not even about future generations. It's also about other than human animals and non-animal species that we share the planet with. That's what's at stake. So let's just have an image like that imprinted on our brain on a daily basis to give us all the motivation that we need if we didn't already. So what's that first area that I would say that change is absolutely necessary, if not also desirable? Personal change is necessary. We've become a very consumptive society. Western civilization, particularly post-industrial civilization, we overconsume like there's no tomorrow. And carbon is one of the main pollutants, greenhouse gases, in the atmosphere that is causing an overheating planet. And we need to be able to contend with that and take some personal responsibility and ownership of that. And why is it that we're often faced with, some people are even prepared, not us, obviously, are prepared to fight for the right to purchase that cut price sofa on Black Friday during a sales frenzy, or a flat screen plasma TV, as if we'd never seen one before? What is it about such objects that turns us into such freaks? Do we really need these common or garden objects to that extent that we would humiliate ourselves in that way? And there's an interesting survey of UK public attitudes, which simply says that the more you earn, the more you think you can't afford what you really need. Well, it can't be that you don't have greater wealth to be able to afford those things which you have desires for. To the contrary, you simply replace and substitute those desires with other desires, probably increasingly difficult to satisfy. So you actually increase your dissatisfaction. There can be a correlation between increase in wealth and level of dissatisfaction. And what is the source of that dissatisfaction? Are we dissatisfied with ourselves? Now, I wouldn't deny that there are basic, important needs that are imperative for every human being to lead a decent life, whether it be health, housing, education, or food. A civilized society needs to ensure that every individual has those basic goods at their disposal. But beyond that, we have become extravagant. And as Marx once said, the more you find value in external things, the less you find value in yourself. And isn't that really our predicament? That whilst we are accumulating more goods, we're actually demonstrating our lack of self-worth. That one of the things that we have failed to do is recognize the relationship between that consumption and our debt to the planet, our debt to the earth, in plundering those raw materials, not leaving enough for the next generation, and moreover, wasting it, leaving it on the scrap heap more often than not. And the second area where we need change is technology. Now, I wouldn't deny, accepting this remote control here, that technology is very useful. It's ubiquitous in society. There are many advantages that flow from technology. But let's be honest, hasn't it started to run our lives more than us running technology? And we need to get much better as a society. It's all well and good for scientists, and we would expect them to get very excited about a new discovery and to want to see the products of their labor demonstrated in new inventions. But society also needs to be able to say and develop mechanisms by which we can properly evaluate through risk, through benefits and harms, and to try and get society and stakeholders to actually consent to those uses of technology before they take on a life of their own. Now, I wouldn't deny also that technology also offers us a potential answer to some of the problems of unabated fossil fuel consumption in terms of renewable energy technology, whether it be wind or wave or solar power. We need to be able to harness those better than we have in the future. But we mustn't then use that as an excuse to carry on business as usual, like there's no tomorrow, continuing to consume more than is our fair share. Instead, we must ensure that we reduce our consumption. And there's something known as the 3 Rs. So you can reduce your consumption, you can also recycle, or even better, reuse. Find somebody through the use of social media, for example. Many communities are getting better at finding individuals who might want something that they're about to throw away. So that's either to reuse or recycle if necessary. And repair. There's a whole industry of repair work that has gone out of fashion. And we need to get better at doing that and stop building inbuilt obsolescence into our technological apparatus in particular, so that we don't think that we can just dump it on planet Earth as if there's no tomorrow. And the third area where I think great change is necessary is the economy. Now, it's sometimes said it's the economy stupid. But again, that's treating the economy as an end in itself. But it never has been. In ancient civilizations, one recognizes the importance of bartering and exchanging goods and recognizing the value in those goods, either through the labor production that was resulted in those goods or the value it has to you. And the economy, there's no doubt, is a very efficient mechanism and tool by which we can put a price on things and identify people who are willing to exchange some money in return for those goods or services or commodities. Now that's important. But the economy at the moment has outgrown its use. We have a financial services sector, for example, which by its own admission is producing products which don't really have any relationship to goods as such. And that causes an imbalance in the economic system, which can give rise to great problems for those of us who are traditional users of the economy, savers and wishing to spend money and find it's no longer in the bank. But what we need to move towards is a carbon-based currency. And there are examples of this already in society. There's an EU emissions trading scheme. It has many flaws. But the basic idea, which is the important thing, which we need to grow and implement further afield, is that carbon is a means of pricing goods. That is to say, in the same way at the moment that we incur a debt to the planet, if you like, when we're drawing that raw materials, nobody's paying the planet. In the same way that we're doing that, we need to ensure that the amount of carbon that goes into the emissions of a product, the amount that goes into our using that product, is priced accordingly. And there are transition town movements, for example. Take the Brixton pound note or the Bristol pound note. Societies and communities have already collaborated to produce their own hard currency and to say, here is an outlet which is approved. I'm able to spend at that retailer, for example, because they are using locally sourced produce with less transportation cost. And as a stroke, we are then becoming responsible consumers, if you like. We are spending wisely. We are considering the impact of our activities on the planet at the same time. But we can move away from even hard currencies. We already use virtual currencies. But we need to fix the convention so that it actually has some relationship and correlation to carbon emissions. So we could end up with a credit card style system where each one of you has got a certain carbon budget in your pocket. It's an annual budget. If you go on a flight, you may reduce that budget by a fair amount, but you're going to have to start thinking more cleverly about how you use your carbon. And that's in line with the principle environmentalists describe as contraction and convergence. So we need to lower, in the rich, relatively rich West, our carbon consumption and carbon emissions, and try and get it closer to what we would regard as an average sustainable level. So finally, what do all these areas of change have in common? Whether it's personal change, where I've said there's a net benefit to this kind of change, that you become less consumptive, is that probably you'll be happier as a result in yourself, in some regard. Whether it's technological change, where technology isn't running the show, that it's us who are actually dealing with technology responsibly, trying to work out whether it's something that we really need, or whether something that's gone before might not actually be better than the thing that's now on offer. We need to get involved in that conversation. Or finally, in terms of economic change, that is a convention, and it always will be. It isn't the economy is stupid. It's us that's at the heart of the economy. And we need to make sure that we transform that economy so that it actually properly costs the debt which we are currently incurring in terms of carbon pollution on the planet. So whilst I started my question, I answered my own question, can we survive climate change without changing ourselves in the negative? I do overall think that in so doing, I have, and you will find that there is a very positive upshot to that lesson.